Well, the inevitable happened, and unfortunately, again, nobody seems to want to talk about how the same things keep happening time and time again without fail. Instead, everyone just wants to point the blame to someone else. Look, I want to talk about Resident Evil today, but I'm also going to talk about Highguard. I know, it's a weird combo, but trust me, it's all going to make sense. Because I'm frankly tired of seeing this happening all of the time. So the fact that Capcom has already cracked the AAA code, while it seems like every other AAA publisher or like developer pretty much seems to have forgotten what people want these days time and time again, dude. So in case you don't know, Resident Evil Requiem has now officially, as you can see here, surpassed 5 million units sold already. That's real. That's insane, dude. And if you want some comparisons, Resident Evil 4 Remake, that took 3 months to hit 5 million units. Village took 5 months to hit that. Resident Evil 3 Remake, it took 2 years to hit 5 million. Resi 2 Remake took 1 year. And Resident Evil 7 took about a year and a half to also hit 5 million units sold. I repeat again, Requiem did all of that in only 5 days. Does this now make Requiem one of the best-selling games of 2026 by a landslide? Yeah, absolutely yes. The game is a massive success right out of the gate, and yeah, I love this game, guys. I actually recently got the Platinum Trophy for Requiem 2, finishing my own Insanity run of the game a little over 4 hours long myself. Yeah, I probably could have done it quicker, but honestly, I was making sure that I grabbed every single healing item possible to ensure that I had a fighting chance. But now that I'm removed from Requiem with the game done at 100%, I kind of feel saddened, I gotta admit. Cause man, what an amazing experience that was. Like, it was so refreshing to play something that not only respected my time, but gave me real reasons to want to replay the games too. So in case you don't know, right, once you actually beat Requiem, you can then use your challenge points to unlock new weapons and buffs. Stuff like infinite ammo, yes that means for the revolver too, as well as new weapons like a machine pistol for Grace, or an assault rifle, or even a rocket launcher for Leon, which is insane. Trust me, if you want to make Insanity a cakewalk, get that rocket launcher, get the infinite RPG unlocked too, and I'm not kidding guys, every single boss in the game dies in one single hit. It's ridiculous. Yes, even the final boss will die in one hit as well from an infinite RPG. Now that I've 100%ed Requiem, I gotta be honest, man, I want to go back. I want to go 100% Resident Evil 4 and 3 and 2, really all of them, Village 2. I want to get all the guns and try all the crazy combos that I can on these zombie faces because it's fun to play. So to me, it's really no surprise why Requiem sold the way that it did, because the game is just, I mean, it's bloody awesome. I have some problems with it, sure. I do think that Grace still needed more weapon variety. I kind of wish you could unlock that gas canister that she uses halfway through the campaign as a weapon at least. I also wish there was just more Leon in general, but I know I'm being greedy there, but hey, what can I say? I love playing as Leon, sue me, I don't care, but overall, man, like what a game, dude. I've been on a Resident Evil kick all year actually. Went back and played Resident Evil 7 and Village, love them both. Actually enjoyed Village again, specifically a lot more than I thought I would. I also really want to go back and replay Resident Evil 3 Remake because that game is just balls to the walls action for a few hours and I find that glorious. Oh yeah, and that other game, Highguard, came out in case you don't know, and it has also officially died. Like, that is actually real as seen here. As their official Twitter account says, Highguard will now be permanently going offline on March 12th. That's just 45 days after launching. Wildlight is also just going to be shutting the game down for good, and that is it. And if I had to wager, Wildlight is probably going to shut down as well too in the future, since Tencent, which secretly funded the game, also exited out of their agreement with Wildlight after Highguard crashed and burned so quickly as well. So why am I talking about Resident Evil and Highguard in a video? That's a weird comparison, right? Yes, it is. It's almost as if one game represents what people really want these days, and the other is absolutely nothing close to what anyone wants. You see, the reason why I love Requiem so much, especially when it released, was because it was kind of everything that games usually aren't these days. And it proves why that Capcom, with release after release, man, they just keep dominating the way that they do. Requiem rejects the bloated live service rot that is honestly poisoning games across the board these days. While at the same time, the Western giants, if you will, of this industry and startups, they keep chasing these sterile trends, right, that nobody really wants anymore. All of Highguard, after millions spent and years wasted making it, it resulted in a game that alienated its fans. and instead Capcom was doubling down on things like high fidelity graphics, silky smooth performance, and ensuring that their mastery of the single player game while offering actual real rewards for engaging with their games is honestly always going to reign supreme, because it will. You see, the problem with your Highguards and stuff like that is that they are nothing experiences. They just want you on the hamster wheel grinding for stupid nonsense that really doesn't matter. On the flip side, Capcom is surging in profits and player counts because their games prioritize actual mechanical depth and real creative integrity over just predatory monetization and really nothing else. What Requiem proves is that the right path forward is to respect your core audience. That is how you keep moving things, gaining the sales, and raking in the cash. Highguard and stuff like it is kind of everything we don't need more of, and I will continue to bang this drum for as long as I have to, until the publishers start to bring back reason to their brains for once. It's why I'm pissed at Sony for years now, constantly just chasing the same live service nonsense while basically giving their enormous player base out there just crumbs when it comes to single player offerings lately in this generation. In the last few years, all we had was Astrobot and Yote. That's basically it. You actually have to go back 3 years ago to reach Ragnarok or say Spider-Man 2 even. Like, what are we doing, guys? In that same time frame, Sony has canceled more live service games that never made it off the ground, by the way, than actual games that released by their first-party studios that weren't just another remaster of The Last of Us again in some capacity. Yet in the past 5 years alone, Capcom has released Resident Evil 3 Remake in 2020, Village in 2021, Resident Evil 4 Remake in 2023, next-gen remasters of Resident Evil 7, 5, and more, as well as bringing their games even to platforms like iOS. And that doesn't even include the DLCs and such like Shadow of Rose and more. It's just crazy to me that Capcom has really cracked the code so long ago already, and yet nobody is copying what they're doing. Sure, they tried a multiplayer Resident Evil game, Reverse, if you remember it, didn't exactly take off. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost as if Resident Evil is beloved because it's a single player quality experience first. And ever since Capcom has just honestly locked in and gave people what they really wanted, they have not stopped winning since. This isn't even like something new, as PC Gamer said here in 2024, as you can see. While everybody was getting laid off in the West, Capcom instead raised the salaries of all their employees back then by 5% across the board. It didn't even end there. Capcom went further, as it says here. Current and new employees will also receive a one-time special payment as an investment in the people who support the future of the company. And Capcom says it introduced a bonus system more closely linked to the company's business performance, as well as a stock-based employee compensation system. Wow, imagine that one. So you're telling me that Capcom employees not only got raises, but they got money incentives and performance boosters that were based on how well the games they made perform for the company. And you're telling me that that's working out for them. I mean, who could have guessed that? But you see what I mean? It could really be all simple. Capcom's layoff era was in about 2018, where they laid off about 150 developers, and they officially shut down their Vancouver operations in Canada. And after that point, Capcom just locked in and said no more layoffs, and then they've been killing it ever since. Capcom Japan also confirms as seen here that this is exclusively for their Japanese employees, which is where most of their people work, obviously, but that they are also heavily investing resources for years now to make their employees' lives better and give them kickbacks for a job well done. They're not the only company doing this either, I know. Nintendo has done the same, as has Sega, and same with From Software. All these companies plus Capcom also keep releasing bangers every year too, like gee, I wonder why that is. It's almost as if when you make what people really want and you treat your employees like, people that are actually there to do work and make things better, everybody eats at the table. That's awesome to see. I love to see that. I love that the people who make Resident Evil, which are scary, disgusting games, full of awful things happening to people all the time, they're being made probably in like the most nicest environments possible. They're sipping their nice coffees that are free at work with their lunches while making the gore and the guts in these games so realistic. And it's probably the nicest job too. Like, good for them, right? I'm happy for them. That's positive. That's great to see. I can't say the same for Highguard though. As a game that had been seen as here a whole year of planned content to come out, they didn't even make it to their second episode or season, I guess, before the plug got pulled. I also think that way of doing things kind of needs to die too, the whole content gets drip fed sort of thing. Like, look, I get it. A lot of games are doing this. Sometimes it can work, but when you launch Highguard, there's barely anything in it to begin with already. So then launching this roadmap with all this content promised that honestly most of what's on here should have been there day one kind of tells you everything you already need to know. Tom Henderson, who runs Insider Gaming, also spoke on how Highguard was just not equipped to survive at all. He said this to someone asking why Highguard failed, where he would say this: "Games are nothing more than a product to investors, and if they don't resonate well on the get-go, they write it off and move on to the next one. Most games are invested in until the release date, and then it's up to the game to make revenue to continue development. In Highguard's case, they didn't have a war chest of funds from a past release, and it didn't make enough money from in-game monetization to keep the lights on for a few months. Tencent wrote it off because it didn't make money from day one, and no other investor would look at the numbers and think it was worth a $5 to $10 million punt to see if they could turn it around in a few months, because it was almost certainly impossible." So you heard it there. From the get-go, Highguard was making basically zero money from the beginning. Nobody was buying anything. People tried it out, they bounced, and then they never came back. And since servers are obviously expensive, ranging in the tens of thousands per month, you kinda need revenue to keep the lights on. And it just didn't happen. The whole thing is too damn expensive. Shame it wasn't a single-player game. It could have had a chance at least. But it's crazy, because for every bad news surrounding a game like a Highguard, you got something awesome happening with Resident Evil. As My Nintendo News reported here, credible leakers have confirmed that Capcom is actually remaking the first Resident Evil game to be like Requiem. Alongside that, there's also remakes coming for Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica, which, by the way, are the only two Resident Evil games I never played myself yet. So I'm very excited to see those happen, because I genuinely don't know what happens in those ones. It's just wild to me, man, right? Like, why the game space can't figure out what people want when it's so obvious. The whole modern game nonsense is just being poisoned by the rot that is engagement metrics and then some. All of this is just done to alienate loyal fans eventually, yet Capcom is just refusing to follow that trend. They're prioritizing single-player god-tier games over the usual corporate slop checklist nonsense that we've become accustomed to. What Capcom is proving is that the only real way forward is to respect your core audience that supports you in the first place. Why is the Western industry so unable to do this themselves? Or maybe the Western industry is simply too broken to learn from their own mistakes. It's like asking someone who's worked the same job for years, who's lived in that same town their entire life, why don't they leave and start somewhere else? And they can never give a good answer, because it's all they've known. The routine, the paycheck, the scenery, that's their lives, and they don't know how to do anything besides what they've been doing for so long. And that's kind of how I view the Western game mantra, that it feels like to me anyway. It's like all of these people are making the same games over and over and over again. Look, it's a hero shooter with insert somewhat unique mechanic that is free to play or whatever else. Then when it doesn't work, they abandon ship to somewhere else to make the same thing again but slightly different. Need I remind you that the Concord devs that worked on Highguard as well, and the same thing happened to them twice, and that's not by mistake. There needs to be a discussion here that what is being pushed is not working. Like, what is the goal next after Highguard is dead? Are these people just going to go to another live service studio and start up the very same thing again for the third time? Are we being serious, really? It really is like some old guy who refuses to change his ways despite fully knowing that the way he's been doing things is clearly not working. Like, you can't be serious. Resident Evil is AAA, we all know this, but we all ever hear from gaming journalists and whatnot is, oh, single player games are obsolete, it's too expensive these days. There's not a big enough audience for that sort of thing. People don't want single player games apparently. The return on investment is too risky. No, instead you should spend 5 years making a free to play game selling cosmetics that cost a quarter of a fully priced video game per bundle instead, because yeah, that'll work, trust me. And then it works maybe like one time out of 30 and the industry goes, ah, see, it worked, it finally worked. We can make stuff like that work and then 30 more fail again. It's wild to me that the East has pretty much just cracked the code already, right? Besides Capcom with Resident Evil, Nintendo is out here making money over fists with every game release they do in studio too. Besides something like a Mario Kart, which is multiplayer, the majority of Nintendo's games are unique to their platform and are single player for the most part. And they're just making money like crazy, dude. It's unreal, and it's not the case elsewhere. Like, when are these people gonna learn? Like, I replayed Requiem 4 times, guys. 4 times. You wanna know why? Because it was really fun to do so. I learned the roots in Requiem to a T. I now know the optimal paths to secure everything needed to get a speed run under the 4 hours done. It feels great because it feels like I have real mastery over the game. Learning that the bolt action sniper rifle is goated for Leon, and that it's even better if you actually remove the scope from it entirely. And if you attach the charm to it that increases damage for the rifle as long as it doesn't have a scope. Like, it feels amazing to shoot and it's great. And the feedback when you shoot the guns in general in Resident Evil, like, dude, come on, it feels amazing. Like, when you shoot the Requiem revolver and it atomizes a zombie's head, the feedback you get from the shot is insane in that PS5 controller. And also how you can feel every single bullet make its way back into the guns through the controller, how the game loads insanely fast because it doesn't need to connect to some big server and find new people to play with. Like, everything is just so great with Requiem. I love the game. It is frustrating though that we could have it so good, where a game game like Requiem isn't some rare occurrence, but could instead become the new normal. The fact that Capcom keeps releasing bangers after bangers while avoiding that live service trap mostly, and whenever they did try live service, like Exoprimal for example, that didn't work for obvious reasons because nobody wants it, but it's ridiculous, isn't it, either way? Capcom has found the blueprint to print money. It's a rather simple one, really, too, I gotta admit. I get it that some people will say, well, Resident Evil Requiem was able to hit 5 million units like it did because of brand recognition alone. True, that is definitely part of it. But we all know Resident Evil in the mid-2010s was cooked as a franchise. Resi 6 basically all but killed the franchise. Nobody cared because it jumped the shark. It really wasn't until Resident Evil 7, which brought the series back to its horror roots, did the resurgence finally begin. And what Requiem's lifetime sales milestone proves is that it took years of building that trust with the paying customer. By giving them what they wanted, that led to the point where they're at now. Yes, I know, not every game will just release and magically hit 5 million units sold. But Resident Evil is able to do what it's doing because Capcom respects the paying customer with their games. They're also fun, and most importantly, the rewards you obtain by playing the game, like new guns and such, are real reasons to keep playing it. Like in Resident Evil 3 Remake, you can farm zombies for points to buy most of the unlocks in the game, which makes the process of playing that game to obtain new ways to play the game a delightful idea, a fun feedback loop, if you will. In Highguard, you're only going to get like one new weapon a whole season, one whole weapon every few months. No wonder the game is dead already, because that's ridiculous. That isn't fun. The drip feeding of content is everything that nobody wants these days anymore. I don't want the promise that the game I'm currently playing could eventually become feature complete one day. I instead want the game to be feature complete the day I buy it, because I am paying the price that is being asked for me to do so in the first place. Why is that so hard to understand? You already have the Cope articles coming out, like from Aftermath.com as seen here, where they say that Highguard didn't have to fail. You're right, it didn't. It also didn't need to be another dime a dozen live service shooter, yet here we are, aren't we? The most delusional belief is that people think there's enough seats at the table for everyone. It just doesn't work that way. You have to earn that seat at the table. Resident Evil has earned theirs. Highguard did it, and somehow that's our fault? No. I can even use the data from actual developers on Highguard to prove that as well, as seen here. Chad Granier, he worked on Highguard. He showed, as you can see there, that over 2 million people tried Highguard during its release, and that the majority of those were on PlayStation, and the average game session was about 91 minutes. This means that a lot of people gave this game a chance, and gave it also a chunk of their time to prove to them that it was worth sticking around for. But that's not what happened. 91 minutes is a long time, by the way, for something to show why it matters too. That's the length of an entire feature horror film these days usually, but no, it didn't deserve to fail apparently. It only had over 2 million people try it out at release. That's 2 million tries to confirm that it was worthy, and it still didn't work. Resident Evil is even more impressive, given that it's not free to play, by the way. It's full price to buy in and play it. You have to actually spend money to play Resident Evil Requiem, unlike Highguard. And it pulled in those 5 million players in the sold copies, which is somewhere around $300+ million in revenue, by the way, already. I'm sure in a month's time, Requiem will sell even more. Apparently it has DLC in late development already, and that will be starring Leon as well. Awesome, I say. You're telling me I get to play more Leon in the future? Hell yeah, dude, sign me up. But you see, that DLC wouldn't even be considered if Capcom wasn't confident in their games. They know it will sell because they have the proven track record to prove it. Like I said, Requiem runs like a dream on PS5 Pro. I'm talking like no hiccups, there's no dips in quality, nothing. The game never crashed once for me. I never had any game-breaking bugs, nothing. It was the epitome of press play, and that's all you gotta do. Why the hell is that not the norm anymore either, right? Like, look, I get it. People like multiplayer games, that's fine, but I'm sick of the excuses either way, man. Don't you agree that you deserve more and not less for the time and money you spend on the things that you love? The industry should be propping up Requiem like it's an oasis in a scorching desert, but instead you're not seeing many articles about people gushing about how Requiem does it all right from the press. There's instead more articles on the internet of journalists defending and crying about Highguard closing down instead. We have our priorities backwards here, guys, is what I'm saying. For an industry that constantly complains about layoffs and more, you'd think it would be high time to realize that maybe we should be pushing the games people actually want to play instead of running defense for things that were going to die no matter what anyone behind the scenes was going to do with it in the first place. Look, I'm not celebrating that Highguard is dying or anything like that, but what I am saying is what we are witnessing by what works and doesn't has to be further pushed to ensure that the future of games becomes things that people actually want these days. I'm not happy that Highguard is gone. I just wish it never existed in the first place, because it ended up costing an entire studio everything again, and this isn't the first time. The games industry needs to be healthy. It needs to be able to thrive, but it needs to be honest with both itself and the players with what people actually want these days. Maybe Marathon will be different, I guess we'll see, but with Highguard, it was always destined to fail. Resident Evil, however, and single player games like it will continue to win, to thrive and grow because they are everything that this industry doesn't want to be these days. Games don't need to be these things that you feel obligated to play forever. I'm going to fondly remember those 20 or so hours that I played of Requiem for far more time than I'll remember most live service games that I ever played in the past. Quality over quantity is always the better option if you ask me. And until the games industry remembers what made this entire industry what it was to begin with, which by the way is single player games if you somehow forgot that, the same things will just keep happening again and again and no one will learn anything from this. Video games should mean something. They shouldn't just be made for the money, but what do I know? I've only been playing them my entire life, but what do you think? Let me know. Subscribe if you want to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.